This week on Taste Utah, we're slowing down, taking a load off, and celebrating an iconic Utah original. We're taking you and me for the very first time trout fishing. We're in Payson at Spring Lake Trout Farm, where for generations, Robert Judd's family has been offering a truly unique experience to Utahns. Never been fishing? Well, their trout farm is probably a pretty good place to start, considering you're basically guaranteed to catch something on your very first cast. These ponds are full of rainbow and cutthroat trout that Robert has been raising. They'll not only let you catch one, they'll even clean it for you. And what we love best about this farm, and really so many of our Utah farms, is that it creates a sustainability line for Utah restaurants to offer one of Utah's finest fish, grown in some of the purest spring streams, and it's a local product direct to chefs for some of the freshest fish you could put on a menu. We celebrate that sacred handoff from the hands of a farmer who nurtures the food into the hands of a chef who creates the most epic culinary masterpiece to nourish our bodies, tickle our palates, and satisfy our soul. Taste Utah is always bringing you local flavors from seeds to our authentically Utah restaurants. Behind every good food story is a great people story. It's our farmers, artisans, chefs, restaurateurs, and hospitality professionals that make Utah a dining destination. Food is a necessity, and it's how we cultivate it, share it, and experience it together that truly creates our unique community. You always have a seat at this table. Are you ready to taste Utah? I am so excited to be in Payson, where the pace is just a little slower. And we're visiting Spring Lake Trout Farm. They're growing amazingly beautiful trout. And we're not only going to learn about farming, but we're gonna do something I have never done. We're gonna go fishing. So I guess we're gonna bait our hooks up and catch us some trout. Adam, it's so good to see you, and Robert, it's so nice to meet you.
Equally.
So, Adam, I know you from just being an extraordinary chef. You have been chef at Block Restaurant, which we visited in our third season, and then you were chef at Communal, and now you're opening your own concept.
Yeah, I'm looking for a space currently, and I've been working with Robert for about 4 years now.
The breadth of this trout farm is so amazing. You have 2 ponds, would we call them ponds, right here?
I call them catch-out ponds, where we allow the general public to come and catch their own fish.
So this is where I'll be fishing?
Yep, so we'll let you fish right here.
Okay.
You can catch fish, and then we offer a service of cleaning or filleting it for you afterwards.
Okay.
So then it's already prepared, so just throw it on the grill and you're ready to cook it.
Oh my gosh, and cooking it is a whole other art, which like Adam can give me insider tips and pointers too.
I'm not the cook.
Right,
so.
okay, so today we're just talking about the fish farming process.
We do the whole entire process here. Taking the eggs and fertilizing the eggs, then it takes about 30 days for those eggs to hatch out. Then it takes about 2 weeks for them to learn how to swim. Once they're swimming, we start feeding them, and then it generally takes about 2 years before they'll be ready to reproduce again.
That's a 2-year commitment.
Well, every fish can, once they start reproducing, can reproduce once per year.
Yeah.
But for them to mature to be able to produce eggs, it takes about 2 years.
And so you're allowing people to come up here and fish for themselves, which is so extraordinary. But one of the reasons that you came on my radar is that whenever I'm out and about in a kitchen, I'm talking to a chef or I'm enjoying trout somewhere in a restaurant, it's almost always hands down Spring Lake Trout Farm. And I think that for a couple of reasons. It's interesting. I went to an event at Utah restaurant up at the Lodge of Blue Sky, which I believe are using your trout.
they were talking about sustainability and this idea that it would be amazing to be able to go and freshly fish as much trout for a restaurant to wild catch them. But it's just not possible. It's not sustainable. There's not that reliability. And truly, like you would have a tomato farm, I mean, you have Howlings right across the way that grows these amazing tomatoes. In order to have that dependency, to know that you're going to have that product, you need to be able to farm it, but farm it in an ethical and sustainable way. And one of the things that strikes me as just gold standard is how you're doing that here.
We produce about 20,000 pounds of trout,
Okay.
a little bit under that, on less than half of what the normal standard is for the water consumption for that much poundage of fish.
Wow.
So because of our drought and our water continually is decreasing, we've had to recirculate water and do a few things, but we're able to sustain that, and we're actually looking to grow even more production. So that's one thing we're looking at. Yep.
How many kinds of trout species do you have here?
I have two. I have rainbow trout, which
Okay.
is your normal production trout, and then I have Bonneville cutthroat, which is a native trout to the Wasatch Front.
Okay, and Adam
So-
was talking to me about this golden trout.
Yes.
What is this?
The beautiful golden trout.
They're actually an albino rainbow trout.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, everybody calls them a golden, but they're technically an albino rainbow trout is what
Okay.
it is. Yep. And so what we had is we had one here about 20 years ago that came off what they call mosaic. So it has both yellow and normal looking.
Okay.
And so we reproduced that or bred it back in, and 25% of her offspring came back as albino. And so then we just started the process of growing an albino strain.
When you talk about farming trout, tell us about the acreage. Give us a lay of the farmland here, so to speak.
So we sit on 4.5 acres. And as far as like sustainability for farming, you can get the most yields on the smallest amount of land possible using a fish species, because you can grow so many more pounds per acre. And that's possible with fish.
And you're using water that you're getting from an actual spring, is that correct?
Correct. There's springs, and we also have artesian wells or free-flowing wells. So, yep.
Awesome. And is the spring called Spring Lake? I just have to ask.
It is. Yep. This is called Spring Lake Trout Farm. Our water feeds what they call Spring Lake, which is the little lake just down below us.
Okay.
And this community is called Spring Lake. So ours is one of the main springs. There's also another main spring about 2 miles to the south of us here, and those are the two main springs for Spring Lake. So one of the benefits of getting fish that are raised on first use water source, for an example on a farm or something like that, is you don't have any of the heavy materials in the water. So you don't have any heavy minerals, any of those kind of things. So if you have a good spring, good source of water, that is actually the most healthy fish you can have out there. I know that, you know, the idea out there is wild caught, and that's great. I love a wild caught fish, but that fish potentially can pick up much more different things,
Pollution,
pollutants
let's
that
say,
are in
yeah.
the water, yep, that are in that water, and then it's retained in that fish, or in the flesh of that fish.
Yeah.
Whereas a first use source like this, they've done the studies, and it's actually the most healthy for you.
And it's because, and you say first use because it's the first flow that's going, that the water is going through, is that
Correct.
right?
Yep, we capture right from the spring, we capture that water and then start growing the fish right on that, yep. So I mean, some of the fish might be a second or third use of the water,
Yeah.
but it's, in general, it's first use, so there's nobody above us. We don't use chemicals, we try to stay away from any kind of antibiotics or things like that, so it's just healthy fish.
There's lots of little pockets up on your farm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about that.
We don't have just one main spring, we have springs all over on our property, and so we try to collect the water from different sources, and because of that we have different locations where we're raising the fish, collect that water, and then eventually goes all into one main system where we're growing most of our fish at.
There's this really cool spring that's natural flowing, and then there's this line of spring that you have sort of crafted to, number one, grow fish in their natural environment,
Mm-hmm.
number two, use that for first use water source, and then number three, in case there were to be some kind of disease or outbreak or something, you wouldn't lose your entire yield of fish.
We've had to move away from earthen type situations to where a lot of the fish we raise now are in concrete raceways or fiberglass raceways. just for disinfection purposes. But you'll also notice that we raise them in certain spots and it flows through gravel in a natural stream channel and then back into some raceways. So that's one way we do it. And you pointed out earlier when we walked by that you were amazed all the watercress that grows naturally and things like that. We have a lot of mint that grows naturally. I know you like to use that in your restaurant.
Tarragon.
It's almost a weed to me.
I can't tell you how many chefs that we have that are like, we want natural watercress, we want natural mint, and it's just, that's what's so extraordinary about farms. We talk about this often on the show, but this ecosystem that feeds each other and creates the bounty that we like to consume as individuals, and it's why farms are such special places. It's, you know, if you're growing cattle, you're thinking about the soil that the grass is being grown in, that the cattle are going to be eating, and all of that. You're thinking about this really special place holistically and not just a utility. What can I use it for? What can I get out of it? How much yield can I get? It's how much can I give so that we can also be receiving. It's a symbiotic relationship that I think is essential, and sometimes we don't think about enough when we're eating food.
Definitely not.
Most of the time, most farmers, their livelihood depends upon the ground or upon whatever they're using to grow it. And ours is water. And so, we're going to take the most care for our water and our fish that's possible out there, because without it, we can't subsist, and we can't provide a product that other people can subsist on. So one of the other things that I really like about what Chef Adam has done, and there's been a few other chefs, is that he's reached out because he wants the freshest product possible.
Yeah.
We've developed a relationship where we're able to, deliver fish directly to his restaurant, and then he takes care of those fish in a great way, and it hasn't been sitting in a warehouse for 2 weeks before it ever got shipped to you.
Yeah.
But it's a fresh product direct to the consumer, and that's what we love about it.
Yeah, I love local food for that reason. It helps strengthen everyone in the local economy. You're just taking something great that someone takes all their time and attention to and just preparing it simply and giving it to the customer.
It's what's so great about ingredient driven and farm driven and local conscious, restaurants and food, the food community, is to be able to have that sustainability and to know that there are certain things that you might have to outsource in different ways so that you're giving the consumer what they want, but that there are certain things that you don't have to sacrifice. And I think one of the most legendary restaurants in Utah, and really one of sort of the catalysts toward that sort of Northern California ingredient driven, small courses, but a lot of them style of eating, which is forage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Chef Viet Pham and Chef Bowman Brown,
yeah.
and Viet's here now with Pretty Bird, and we interviewed him a couple of seasons ago. Bowman's up in Maine doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bowman was the first one who reached out to me to try to do this. Yep.
Yeah.
And he's the one that first started with, he wanted me to try caviar, and never ever had I tried fresh caviar from my own product.
Oh my gosh.
Until Bowman Brown asked me about it, and then I tried it, and it was amazing. Fresh out of the fish,
Yeah.
so much more. I mean, it tastes, the best way to describe it, and we'll let you try it here in a minute, is it's closer to a chicken egg with a little bit of a fish flavor. It just seems like when you salt it, that's when it really brings out that fish flavor. But
Yeah.
fresh right out from the fish, it's an amazing product.
I mean, extraordinary, and also how cool that that's something that chefs, consumers, whomever, could ask and say, hey, is it possible for me to get X, Y, Z, and start a relationship and a synergy there, which I think is really, I mean, just the breadth of what you're doing is super phenomenal. And we're gonna go on a tour and then go fishing.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Sounds
All right,
great.
let's do it.
All right. This is the process we go through when we are checking the females for eggs. What I'm generally checking for is just to see, similar to like you can tell when a lady is pregnant and is about ready to have her baby, you can also tell on a fish. Now one thing with the rainbow trout, most of the trout species, you can tell a male from a female just by the structure of their body. So for an example, right here, this is a male, and the way you tell is he's got a triangular shaped head. You look at his body color, and then you can really tell on his bottom jaw, that starts to grow what they call a kype, similar to antlers on deer, but that will grow up over their top jaw, and that's how you tell it's a male. And then you also check and just verify that it is or isn't a male. A female, it's going to be much more uniform in body size, but if you look at their head's going to be rounded, and it doesn't have that triangular shaped head, and that's one of the main ways to tell a male from a female.
The breadth of this farm is amazing. How long has it been operational?
The farm has been here since 1912.
1912.
That they started raising fish. And then our family, kind of a crazy story, we were here trying to find a relative and got lost and couldn't find the relative and asked for directions. 2 weeks later, my dad sold out of the, he was in the retail clothing business.
Okay.
Sold out of that and bought the farm, and we've been raising fish ever since.
But it's like sitting at this table, which you told me your dad built
About 40 years ago.
40 years ago. Yeah. And all of the people who have sat at this table, all of the meals that have been shared, all of the kindnesses that have been exchanged, all of the community that has been crafted here. It's just so special to be a part of and to be able to share and tell your story. We just saw all of this different breadth of fish. You keep them all very differently contained. Talk a little bit about that.
There's two different reasons. One is so I know whether they're, when they're gonna spawn, whether they're a reproducing fish or whether they're a sterile fish. So the state of Utah requires that if I sell a live fish in certain areas in the state, they have to be sterile.
Okay, just in case they were to get into...
Yeah, mix in with their special fish or something.
I got it.
Yep. So, but for the most part, most people just want a reproducing fish, that sort of thing. Now in the restaurant industry,
yes, the restaurant biz, drop it now.
So the restaurant industry, the main big boys, what they do is they actually manipulate the fish to where they are a female fish, and then they will pressurize them and make them sterile so they'll be a sterile female.
Okay.
So then they won't produce eggs or anything, so that they'll be more uniform in body structure. So when they run them through their processing machines, they come out more uniform.
That's so, and you don't do that here.
I don't do any of that.
No.
You can ask Adam.
Yeah.
All my fish aren't the same size. Sometimes he gets a bigger one and sometimes slightly smaller one, but that's just so,
I think that's the reality of working with like local farms, is being flexible with what they can do within their operation.
When you get fish that are maybe not all exactly the same size, it's harder for the chef to plate it, but at the same time you can use that whole fish, whereas if I'm ordering from, a processing plant, they're going to specialize in just a certain size fish, and that other portion just gets thrown away. It's not used because it doesn't meet their, their size.
Tell us about this process. So you went and found us some fresh fish eggs.
Correct. I went and sorted through some Bonneville cutthroats that are just at the tail end of their spawning season, and found one that was ready, and we've got some fresh caviar. Just barely took it out of the fish, and we're going to try it.
Yeah, okay.
So, here we go.
Cheers.
Soft.
Pouty. Like there's like that richness. It does. It tastes like an egg yolk. Like that's what's coating the palate. Obviously, it doesn't taste exactly like a chicken egg yolk, but that's what.
Yeah, very rich, like a yolk.
But you don't get that real fishy flavor.
No,
but it seems like when
subtle.
you salt it, then that helps to bring that fishy flavor out a little bit more.
Yeah, you'd be able to try it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely really nice in mine.
Now, Adam, we have to know secrets to cooking trout.
Make sure that if you're gonna keep the skin on, to make sure to get it nice and seared so that the skin itself is edible. You don't need to scale it or anything when it comes to rainbow trout. You can just put the fillet right down on the pan.
I mean, these are insider tips. So you, first of all, you want to come down here, catch your fish fresh, and then you don't even have to debone it. You don't even have to break it down.
And
Robert,
you don't need a license either.
You don't need a license.
You can bring your kids,
year round.
Correct.
So I'm gonna do this. I'm excited. I'm gonna suit up. and I'm gonna grab a fishing pole. Robert, you're gonna teach me.
Okay.
And then Adam's gonna cook us some
So
trout.
the question, have you caught a fish before?
I've never fished. This is
2 in a row. I just had Dee Dee Henderson here,
Yeah.
the Lieutenant Governor,
she's
last
wonderful.
week. And she caught her first fish here
I'm
too.
so excited. I can't wait.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go.
Thank
Let's
you
get
so
going.
much.
You bet.